Welcome to the story of Alice in Wonderland, a fantastical adventure beyond imagination. With just one curious step following the white rabbit, little Alice tumbles into a mysterious wonderland, where magical doors transform her size, enchanted cakes and potions await, playing cards come to life, and a mad tea party defies all reason. A journey full of surprises, whimsical colours, and bizarre characters that will sweep you away into a world where the impossible becomes possible. On a warm afternoon, Alice sat beside her sister. Her sister was absorbed in a thick book filled with nothing but words, no pictures, no conversations. Alice had been listening to her sister read aloud for what felt like forever, and her eyelids began to grow heavy. Just then, something extraordinary happened. A white rabbit wearing a waistcoat dashed past. As it ran, it pulled out a shiny pocket watch and muttered, "Oh dear, I shall be late." That's odd, Alice thought. A talking rabbit with a pocket watch? Curiosity urged her on more strongly than any sense of caution, and she leapt up, chasing after the white rabbit across the field. The rabbit vanished into a burrow beneath an old tree. Alice ran to it and tumbled right in. She fell and fell. The sides of the hole were lined with bookshelves, wooden boxes, glass jars, even framed pictures. She tried to grab them, but they slipped past her fingers. She seemed to be drifting down like a leaf. Yet the fall lasted so long that Alice began to think she might be heading straight to the center of the earth. At last, she landed in a long hallway. At the far end, the white rabbit hurried along and vanished through a tiny door. Alice ran to it and saw that it opened into a breathtaking garden, but she was far too big to fit through. On a glass table nearby lay a golden key and a small bottle labelled "Drink Me." Alice took a sip and she shrank to the size of a doll. But now the key was far above her reach. She spotted a cake labelled "Eat Me" and thought, if it made her big, she could reach the key. If small, she could pass through the door. But the bite made her shoot up until her head hit the ceiling. Frustrated and unsure what to do, she began to cry, and her tears poured onto the floor until they formed a deep pool. The white rabbit appeared again, startled by her size, and dropped his gloves and fan in his hurry. Alice picked them up, fanned herself absent-mindedly, and realized she had shrunk back to her normal size. She found herself swimming in the pool of her own tears, alongside a mouse who was also struggling to stay afloat. Soon more and more animals and birds were swept into the water, all paddling for their lives until the tide finally receded. Before Alice could catch her breath, the white rabbit returned, ordering her to fetch his gloves and fan from a nearby room. Inside, she found another bottle, took a drink, and suddenly began growing so fast she filled nearly the entire space. Pebbles were tossed through the window at her, but to her astonishment, they turned into little cakes. She ate one and immediately shrank until she was tiny again. Wandering through the forest, she came across a proud caterpillar perched on a mushroom. The caterpillar told her that eating from one side of the mushroom would make her grow, and the other side would make her shrink. Testing it, Alice took a nibble from one side and shot up taller than the treetops, sending birds scattering in fright. A bite from the other side brought her back to her usual height. Which way should I go now? She wondered aloud. The signposts pointed every which way, offering no help. If it's the white rabbit you're after, a grinning Cheshire Cat called down from the branch of a tree, "Ask the Mad Hatter. He lives just down there." Following the cat's directions, Alice found the Mad Hatter and the March Hare hosting a tea party, joined by the Duchess and that unsettling, ever-grinning cat. She sat for a while but quickly decided it was the dullest party she'd ever attended. Leaving, she stepped through a door in a tree and, to her surprise, found herself back at the very path she'd started on. After a nibble of mushroom to adjust her size, she finally stepped through the small door into the beautiful, fragrant garden. There, 3 gardeners were hurriedly painting white roses red, for the Queen of Hearts despised white roses. A deck of cards, complete with a king, a tyrannical queen, and the white rabbit, marched into the garden. Soon a game of croquet began, played with flamingos for mallets, hedgehogs for balls, and card soldiers bent double to form the hoops. The Cheshire Cat's head appeared again, floating without a body, and the Queen shrieked for it to be beheaded, even though there was nothing to behead. Alice suggested asking the Duchess, prompting the Queen to demand her capture. When Alice returned to the game, her flamingo was nowhere to be found, and instead she found herself inside the palace during a trial. The Knave of Hearts stood accused of stealing the Queen's tarts. 12 animals, including the lizard bill, were called as witnesses, but all gave muddled, ridiculous testimony. The king acted as judge, and the chaos mounted with every passing minute. As Alice looked on, she absent-mindedly nibbled the last piece of mushroom in her pocket. She began to grow, taller and taller, until her head hit the ceiling of the courtroom. The king abruptly summoned her as a witness, even though she had nothing to do with the case. By law, the king declared she was too tall to testify and must leave at once. Alice refused, saying she would go only after hearing the verdict. The Queen and King spouted nonsense, each trying to overrule the other until the Queen screamed, "Off with her head!" Alice stood her ground, scoffing that they were nothing but a pack of cards. At that, the entire court rose up and flew at her like a swirling storm of playing cards. And she woke to find herself lying on the grass, her sister sitting beside her with the book still open. The marvelous, impossible adventure had been nothing more than a dream. But what a dream it had been. At the end of her magical adventure, Alice awakens and realizes Wonderland was not just a dream, but a reminder that imagination is the key to unlocking miracles. The story closes, yet its message lingers. Keep curiosity, faith, and courage alive in your heart when facing the world. For sometimes, wonder only comes to those who dare to believe in the impossible. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons below. And remember to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next stories. Thank you so much, everyone.